I want to thank one of our incredible sponsors, BrainTap. You may have listened to our podcast with the founder of BrainTap, Patrick Porter. And if you did, you'll definitely want to get involved in BrainTap. And if you didn't, please, I strongly recommend that you go back and listen. It's so incredibly informative. Here's what BrainTap can do. You can literally build your brain fitness with BrainTap's mobile app and wearable headset. Everyone here at Outcomes the Sun podcast has had and continues to have positive results with BrainTap. Your brain is guided from awake and reactionary patterns to intuitive and creative responses. BrainTap is backed by neuroscience and research and was developed by Patrick Porter himself. BrainTap creates a symphony of brainwave activity to optimize your brain's potential, restore your ability, balance your energy, and calm your brain. And listen, it is a game changer when it comes to sleep. This technology is truly a gift, and I am so incredibly grateful to be able to share it with you. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. I just wanted to let you know that this episode with Tyler Norris, who is a master of divinity and also a very good friend of mine whom I went to school with, literally went to school with some unmentionable amount of years ago. Anyway, we had some technical difficulties because Mellisa, my partner in crime on the podcast, was in Canada. And anyway, so we missed some of her questions, and I truly apologize. Everything will be back in order again for our next episode. But for this one, please know that we are sorry for the technical difficulties, but you're going to love this episode with my dear friend, Tyler Norris.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mariel Hemingway and my partner, Melissa Yamaguchi, who's actually in Montreal right now. And we have a great Outcomes the Sun episode today. We have a friend that I actually went to school with. I'm super excited about this because, we've kind of reunited after many years of seeing each other at a distance. And then we reunited, and it just turns out that he is involved in so much incredible mental health, community, wellness, health stuff that I just got very excited. We met in the summer, I think, in 2022, we met in the summer, and it was like no time had gone by. I just noticed a couple of wrinkles on both of our faces, but I won't even talk about those. But anyway, we have an amazing guest. His name is Tyler Norris, and he really has been in the space of mental health and wellness and creating well communities. And I would love for Tyler to kind of explain what that means, because I think people don't realize that there's such a need for communities to come together, and that wellness in a community, kind of from a community aspect, really is a powerful place to create change. And I'd love for you to explain, as an entrepreneur, as a philanthropist, how you have made changes in communities and where you have done that.
Well, first, Marielle, how delightful to be on this show with you. And we won't talk about how many decades ago we were in school together, but
No, we won't.
but to reconnect and find ourselves kindred spirits, and how do we help create more well-being in our lives and in our communities is really a delight. And Melissa, great to be here with you and getting to know you as well. Marielle, as it wasn't always so easy in our community growing up. A lot of us struggled with lots of things as young people, lots of mental health challenges, addiction challenges, et cetera. And I was not spared my own struggles with that. And leaving this valley and then going out into the world after college, I felt called to measurably improve the health of communities. How do you create communities that are gardens to grow people in? That is kind of what had emerged for me early as a sense of mission, a calling, and what I wanted to be about. And I find myself now, some 4 decades later, I said I wasn't going to share time, right? Having had the opportunity to work in over 500 cities across the country, work with about a half a dozen philanthropies, and how do you make investments in community well-being that create the conditions for flourishing in the first place? And this conversation might talk about how do we change our own behavior to eat healthier, move more, manage our stress, build connection, all those things that we know help create healthy lifestyles. I was always interested in how do you create the conditions that support the healthy choice? How do you make the healthy choice the easier choice? And particularly for people who are lower income and
Yeah.
struggle in communities that are less resourced, we may say, I want to eat healthier or I want to move more, but it's not safe. Uh, Cheap, empty calories are all that's available in the store. So we've been working to create communities that support human flourishing.
Awesome. That's amazing. Well, and you really have made a difference. I think in the Bay Area, you have a significant you've made a significant impact there, and it's so interesting. You bring up the very subject that really that I think about a lot because it seems to be healthy in our brains and our bodies seems to be people with means. It's like, oh, well, that's an option for you. But especially in this country, we don't make that an option for everybody, and it should be, and it needs to be. I was having a conversation with Bobby earlier, my significant other,
Yeah,
and we were talking about we want to create a wellness center here in the Wood River Valley, which is where you and I both come from, and we're kind of creating community here. Um, but who supports that? Well, people with means obviously are the ones that are going to be able to support that. But what that for me, what that says is, okay, so you get those people that have money and that can do that. And then you say, you give a little bit extra because once a month, I want to bring people in from, Jerome and Twin Falls and wherever, Idaho Falls or whomever, and the support communities that support this great community that we live in that don't have the means to shift their life, and they don't have the education. I want to be able to educate
yeah,
people that don't have the opportunities that we have. I mean, we get it all day long, and things that are obvious to us are not obvious to
yeah.
everybody else. And so, what are you doing actually in our little community? Do you have anything specific that you're working on, or?
Well, a couple of things are brewing in the community, and I'll just build on one of your earlier points first, which is that most of what creates health, the health of people at a population level, 330 million Americans, for example, has nothing to do with the healthcare delivery system. It has to do with education. It has to do with having a living wage, access to healthy,
Yeah.
fresh, nutrient dense foods, a reasonable place to live, humane housing, transportation to get to work and school and all those things that matter, including a sense of belonging, being welcome where you live. And so
Yeah.
many people, particularly black and brown and immigrant and queer, they feel like, now am I welcome here? Am I wanted here? And that
Yeah.
sense of isolation increases that way. So what all of those things historically they've been called the social determinants of health. These days we think of them as the vital conditions for intergenerational well-being. It's those conditions that we've been investing in communities across the country to ensure that people not only have access to health care, but access to the determinants of health in the first place: food, housing, income, education, all those things that conspire to produce health. So a number of the things that I think are really exciting in the Wood River Valley, as you know, recently we um, were addressing the tragic spate of suicides, some associated with substance misuse in our own community. Sadly, it would be sad if it was anyone, but many of those among our first responders, some of
Yeah.
those who are the first on the scene to care for
Yeah.
others, whose lives have been struggling for a series of reasons, particularly during COVID, who were among those who had died by suicide. So we've been working a lot in this valley to do much as you've done, to normalize talking about our depression, our
Yeah.
anxiety, thoughts of suicide, how we might be struggling with addiction. These are not moral failings or character flaws. These are
No.
human realities, as we know. And so we've been, most of all, making it safe to talk. Second, we've been creating more of a ground for people who can listen. I mean, sometimes we need our psychiatrists and psychologists and we need others to help, but oftentimes we just need another human being who will listen and be there, not try and fix us or something. So we're
Yeah.
building skills of how to support turning to one another so that amidst provider shortage and all that, we all have skills that we can be there for one another. And I think that this whole idea of expanding access to well-being, both through ensuring people have access to those community conditions, but also to someone to talk to make meaning of what you're struggling with, these turn out to be the main drivers of well-being, a sense of purpose, belonging, some awe and wonder, maybe from beauty or relationship, food, whatever might feel like it's enlivening, and then service, the ability to give back. And so a big part of what we're working on in this community includes service opportunities, so that people can be part of that incredible mutuality and reciprocity that is human life with each other, that is community.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, Melissa and I talk a lot about that on the show. We talk about, well, first of all, I often bring up listening. I think listening is one of the key ingredients to people feeling, I mean, to be heard in a world where you feel, less than or marginalized in any way. Being heard is one of the first steps towards kind of creating that community and a space of listening.
Yes.
So I'm grateful to hear these words, because these are the kinds of things, these are the building blocks that really do create community, and community that is open to the dialogue, whatever the dialogue may be.
I think, Melissa, first of all, I love you listening and tuning in as I tune in with my kids. All of us were talking before we got on the show about our kids and how much we're learning from them about how they're navigating the complexities and challenges of this time. Because the layered crises, if you take sort of a political and social and COVID and climate existentialism, and you really look at the challenges, it's a pretty heavy load on our young people. So what you're describing is so important. And for me, having been at this work for a long time now, I've always been a bit suspect of the magic bullet. The truth is that are cheap, empty calories profitable? And do a lot of companies make money selling us this? Absolutely. And that is part of the problem. In fact, we can look at how our tax even subsidizes cheap, empty calories. That's a part of the solution. And God bless those who want to go after and work on that. I think it's really important. Another aspect of that, though, is our food environments. Do we have so many people live in food deserts where accessing nutrient dense food is very difficult or potentially unaffordable? And then they're stuck with, you have food deserts on the one hand and then junk food swamps on the other, where what's available is, it's toxic.
Yeah.
And so those are things where it could be local political pressure and choices, all the way to the choices we all make to put better things in our body. So I think we have to own our own choices, recognize that the immediate environment's going to shape that. And if there's bad actors out there, we can vote with our pocketbook and with our feet, and as well as vote as people in our democracy. If we're finding that our farm bill, for example, is subsidizing commodities that are not beneficial, or our food pyramid strategies aren't actually helping people eat what keeps them whole. So let's just say that we have multifaceted challenges. So the solutions are also multifaceted.
Yeah.
They're political, they're investments, they have to do with place. but they also do have to do with each other,
Yeah.
and we can all support each other in eating better too.
You know what? This all comes, for me, it's kind of what you're saying is the simplistic version is lead by example, right? You only can be as good as you can be, right? So you show up and
Yeah.
you are an example to those around you. And then ultimately it's like, I guess the community, it's like joining hands, but education then becomes so incredibly important because what you're talking about, nutrient dense food, most people don't even have the language for that. They don't even understand that that's a
Mm-hmm.
problem. They don't
Mm-hmm.
understand that eating empty calories and horrible food is affecting their brain capacity, their ability to make good choices, their ability to walk into the world with power and confidence and focus because their brain is full of chemicals. So I find it, it's multifaceted and very scary, but the education piece is got to be critical.
And the thing for me, I think if I could try and simplify it in this way, is that, again, a lot of my work has been focused on creating these conditions to support people making the healthy choices. But then when it comes back to our own piece, I think it comes down to three things: eat healthy, move more,
Yeah.
and find your joy. And
Yes.
by eating healthy, we mean not too much, low on the food chain, right? We know what that is. Move more, which means take a walk. My God, the most important part of the day might be to walk with your partner or walk with your kid or the dog or take in a little nature, not talking to anybody for a little bit. That is so powerful while moving your body. Sometimes my best ideas come that way. I actually have a practice of never hiring anybody that I haven't had a walk with. A little harder during COVID because you learn so much about how people are when you walk with them. And
Yeah.
so walking is a very powerful thing to do. And we're made for walking.
Yeah.
I mean, that we are bipeds. That's what we're made for. And finding joy it can be a little elusive because so many of our little programs for happiness, like the junk food or too much couch time or a substance, those little programs for happiness don't do too well for us, right? They're
No.
good for a bit, but they don't really bring us what we want. We're wired for connection. In fact,
Yes.
our birthright is connection. So when we're not connected with other people, it's like violence on ourselves. We're bereft, like many of us experienced during COVID. So those things, eat healthy, move your body, and be with people. Those are the things that connect. And sometimes when we're like, oh my God, I just can't do it with another person, that's when you need another person most. And
Yeah.
take time to cultivate those friends and be that friend, God's sake, for somebody else who may need that ear
Well, and
or
it's
that
like
walking
you said.
partner.
You also brought up service. It's like I always say to people, if you're going through that dark, night or just even having a bad day, the best thing you can do is do something for somebody else because it gets you out of your own story, your own head, your own nonsense. And one of the best things you can do, and it's what Melissa and I do all the time, is we go out for walks. Sometimes we're virtually together, but but
Yeah,
it's important.
it's a walk.
Nature is so healing. It's so profound and powerful. And we're so lucky to be up here, but no matter where you are, if you have to go around a block in a city, there's something, it does something, it shifts
Right.
the energy and it
Yeah.
changes you. And it's true. Movement, eat better, like make simple choices, and be quiet for some part of the day. Be
Yeah.
quiet, and we know that from our own spiritual practices. And I know that all three of us have our own sort of way about, meditation or, some sort of spiritual focus, but that's also key. It's like finding something that you believe in and really believing in it and just taking the time to allow that to wash over you. Because sometimes joy will come from that, right? From those choices that you make. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And letting ourselves, and just to say this, that allowing that grief to happen, that
Yes.
sadness to happen is sometimes really key. It's like the beauty we've all experienced when the tears finally come, then there's really a chance to feel okay again.
Yeah, because it is,
Yeah.
it's doable. What you're saying is what we're suggesting is not insurmountable. We're not saying that you have
Yeah.
to, join a something, any kind of
Yeah.
anything. You
Yeah.
just have to walk outside. You just have to get up 5 minutes earlier and take
Yeah.
a few minutes to be still, a quiet walk. But, and
Yeah.
it's those messages that you keep having to, it's kind of like starting meditation. I've people always say, "Oh, how can you meditate?" Well, I didn't start meditating an hour. I started with like 2 minutes, and it was really torturous. As I recall, but then I added 2 minutes, and then I added 2 minutes, and soon I was at 20 minutes, and then 20 minutes kind of went past in a very easy way. And then some days it's long. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes
Mm.
you're in the mix of it, but that's life.
Mm.
And also the
Yeah.
beauty of being uncomfortable sometimes, because I think we do live in a society that we want it to all be pleasant. And not all of it is
Yeah.
pleasant. Like sometimes you have to get a
Yeah.
little dirty in order to figure out your stuff, but then getting through that, you do get washed clean and you do feel this, oh my gosh, wow. I understand a
Yeah.
little bit more about myself
Right.
just by
Yeah.
sitting in the discomfort for not for a ton of time, but sometimes we have to address the discomfort to understand where it comes from and how to get
Yeah.
out of it. What is that direction
Right.
out? Right? I don't know.
I love that. No, I really love that because, when we begin to learn to meditate or even just to sit for 5 minutes yourself, we wiggle our bottom, our mind is racing, we're making lists for the grocery store. It's like, what is it? Why can't I just be here with myself? So that's true. That's challenging to actually just be with our feelings and our thoughts and all that. And that, but the thing that I think is most challenging for people that are really struggling is the way of talking with ourselves about ourselves
Yes.
that we would never say to a
I
friend.
know.
We have conversations with ourselves. I can't believe you did that. Once again, you this, you that, and I know that my own critic in that is harsher on myself than I would ever be to another soul. And so, whatever may be the cause of suffering, what one of my teachers, Pema Chodron, has talked about as the first arrow, right?
Yes.
You're struggling with grief, or you're struggling with depression, or you're struggling with loss, or you can't find work, or that thing you're trying to do is not happening, or your partner this or that. That's the first arrow. But that second arrow is the one that is toxic language
Yes.
back at ourselves. The most important thing we could do is sweeten ourselves. That doesn't mean don't be tough. Hold ourselves accountable to our commitments, but get kind with yourself. And I know for myself, that's been a way
It's
of,
huge. Self-talk. I
yeah,
talked about it in one of the books I wrote years ago. It's
yeah,
like toxic self-chatter. We are so many. If you
yeah,
had that person to dinner, you would kick that person out. Like, you are so rude.
exactly.
But we do this all day long. We're constantly, like, I'm not good enough. I'm this, I'm that. It really is. And that is, I think that's learned behavior. I mean, I know you and I grew up in some interesting homes, and our childhoods
Yes.
were wonderful and complicated. And there was a lot of people in our lives with their own self chatter, and you pick that up. And as a child, I'm thinking about my daughter who is pregnant, right? My daughter who
Mm-hmm.
is going to have a child, and thinking about, like it thinking about what I didn't do and what I was still doing to
Yeah,
myself at the
exactly.
time, right?
Right.
And thinking, oh my gosh, she has such an opportunity to not berate herself and continue that behavior onward. So it's just an interesting conversation, because it is, wow, we are not nice to ourselves, and that's so sad, because we only have
So true.
ourselves to be walking through life, and ultimately it's the message inside your head that you keep listening to. and it gets repeated over and over and day after day,
Yes.
so that's sad. Let's not do that anymore. Sorry. Anyway, no more mean talk. Be nice to yourself, damn it.
Yes. Be nice to yourself.
Well, Tyler, this conversation could go on, and we have a very short show. It's 30 minutes, but what you have brought up for us, I know I speak for both Melissa and I. It's just refreshing because that's really the kind of the philosophy, and the roots of our philosophy are based on these simple choices that we can make. And I think that that's what you're introducing into communities, and we're so grateful for that. So thank you. Come back and talk to us, because there's so much more to address, and you really are making an impact. I haven't really expressed how grateful I am for what you have done in different communities around the country, and actually around the world. So thank you for that, and thank you for being my friend for so many years.
Yes. Well, here's to deepening that and continuing the conversation and the work we can do here in the US
Yes,
and our community and around the world.
absolutely.
So here's to that. And Melissa, so enjoyed this time with you as well.
Thank you all for joining us on another Out Comes the Sun podcast. Join us next week for another show, and have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful week. Happy New Year.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Out Comes the Sun. You can listen to our podcast on Spotify, on Apple, and on YouTube. And you can donate to the Mariel Hemingway Foundation at the marielhemingwayfoundation.org. And I want to spell Hemingway for you, HEMINGWAY.org. I only say that because a lot of people put two M's, and that just won't work. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, you can go to the donate button at the bottom, and it will take you right to a link with a QR code. And if you go to marielhemingway.org, you can also press the donate button and be able to donate to the foundation, which is designed to help guide people towards finding the right solutions for their mental health issues. That is my goal. I'm just trying to raise money so I can come up with an app and a website that has all the information you could possibly want to know about mental health and where to go. But we are in the process of making that happen, and your donation means so much to us. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.